Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so have you ever found yourself completely and utterly exhausted by the simple act of, say, choosing a movie on Netflix or picking a place to grab dinner? You just sit there weighing all the different options, and suddenly what is supposed to be a fun, totally low-stakes choice feels like an absolute mental marathon over a bowl of noodles. Well, today we're going to dive straight into the fascinating psychology behind why making these simple, everyday choices can sometimes feel so paralyzing. And the really cool thing psychology tells us, this isn't just about being indecisive. It's actually an incredible window into how uniquely your brain is wired.
I want you to picture this because it is an incredibly relatable scenario. You are standing right there in the grocery store aisle. You've been there for 10 solid minutes, completely paralyzed, just trying to decide which brand of pasta to buy. You kind of start feeling a little ridiculous, right? You're standing there, staring blankly at the shelf, fully aware that it's literally just a $3 box of noodles. But for some reason, your brain is treating this incredibly simple choice like it's a major, life-altering event.
If that sounds totally familiar to you, I want you to take a deep breath, because psychology reveals that this isn't a flaw at all. You aren't being slow, and you aren't just indecisive. In fact, it's actually a massive sign that your brain is operating on a much deeper, far more intricate level than a lot of the people around you. Your mind just simply refuses to stop at the surface.
This brings us to an absolutely brilliant concept called cognitive complexity. Now, to most people, a simple decision is exactly that, simple. But if you have a highly intelligent or deep-wired mind, there is really no such thing as a simple choice. Cognitive complexity means your brain naturally and totally automatically examines every possible angle, consequence, and possibility that others just completely miss. Your gifted mind doesn't necessarily just work faster, it works so much deeper, literally making 10 different intricate connections for every single thought.
Think about what this looks like in everyday life. When someone else walks down the aisle, they see a box of cereal, think, oh hey, quick snack, and just grab it. Boom, done. But a complex brain? It refuses to settle for shallow outcomes. It instantly launches into a massive, multi-dimensional analysis before your hand even reaches out.
Let's look under the hood at what's actually happening during that analysis. You are instantly running this massive subconscious checklist. You're evaluating the nutritional value. You're doing the math on the cost per ounce in your head. You're recalling the brand's reputation, and you're even forecasting how that specific choice might impact your mood later in the day. This lightning-fast mental checklist isn't anxiety. It's actually your complex brain's incredibly thorough way of gathering as much information as possible to ensure you get the absolute best outcome. Basically, it's a feature, not a bug.
So moving on to Section 1, the roots of the freeze, looking into the past.
You see, cognitive complexity is really only half the story. There's another fascinating and deeply empathetic layer to this freezing response. To understand it, we actually have to look away from the grocery shelf and trace things back to how you grew up. If you were the responsible one as a kid, you may have experienced something psychologists call parentification. This happens in a childhood environment where a kid has to grow up way too fast. Maybe you had to constantly manage the emotions of the adults around you. In that environment, you learn very quickly that making a mistake is dangerous or leads to severe disappointment. Because of this, your nervous system gets completely hardwired to be on high alert, deeply hyper-aware of social signals and the consequences of every little action.
So how does this actually play out in our everyday lives? Well, step 1, you face a totally low-stakes decision today, like picking a movie. Step 2, that old, deeply ingrained alert system from your childhood kicks right in. And step 3, your brain just freezes. It stops you in your tracks simply to protect you from making a quote-unquote dangerous mistake, even when the current stakes are basically non-existent. Your brain is just trying to keep you safe using a really outdated map.
Which brings us right into Section 2, the dopamine planning trap.
Okay, so we have the deep wiring of cognitive complexity combined with the high alert nervous system of your past. On top of all that, many deep thinkers fall into a very sneaky behavioral trap that makes the freeze even worse. You confuse thinking about a choice with actually making progress. Consider how your mental energy is actually being spent here. The vast majority of your effort goes into just imagining the perfect plan. Another massive chunk goes into constantly analyzing options. And that tiny, little remainder? That's the energy spent actually making the choice. Why does this happen? Well, because your brain releases a hit of dopamine, the reward chemical, just from imagining a successful plan. You feel productive just by thinking about it. But in reality, you get stuck in this cycle of mental exhaustion that drains all your energy before you ever even take action.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this. As long as you stay in the planning phase, the dream of the perfect choice stays alive. The fantasy remains untouched. But the exact second you actually pick one, the moment you choose a pasta, a movie, or a path, you risk being wrong. Choosing equals risking being wrong. And the freeze? It's really just a clever way to delay that risk indefinitely.
Okay, let's get into solutions with Section 3, Breaking the Freeze, the Internal Shift.
We know why it happens. We know about the deep processing, the childhood roots, and the dopamine trap. So how do we solve this? How do we break the freeze so you can confidently buy your groceries and move on with your incredibly valuable day? Well, it requires an internal shift. The cure really starts with a major step into emotional maturity. You must realize, deeply and fundamentally, that your self-worth isn't tied to being perfectly right all the time. Your value as a person is not negotiable, and it sure as heck shouldn't be based on external results or executing a flawless grocery run. A suboptimal choice of cereal doesn't mean you failed. It just means you chose cereal. To put this into practice, you have to establish what psychology calls an internal locus of evaluation. First off, you gotta stop worrying about what others think or might judge you for. Second, empower yourself to judge your choices by your own personal standards. And third, deliberately give yourself permission to be imperfect. Seriously, if you pick a bad movie, it's just a bad movie. Trusting your own internal standards is what finally frees you from that endless loop of external analysis.
The next time you are standing in an aisle or endlessly scrolling through a streaming service and you feel that familiar paralysis creeping in, I really want you to remember this highly validating truth. Your brain isn't broken. It's just very, very busy. Your mind is functioning exactly as its complex wiring intended. It is doing its job. It just needs you to gently tell it that it's safe to turn off now.
You are uniquely wired for depth, reflection, and incredible complexity. And yes, I know, this trait can definitely make a quick trip to the store feel totally overwhelming sometimes. But never, ever forget that this is the exact same superpower that allows you to solve deep problems, empathize deeply with others, and understand the world in rich, nuanced ways that most people literally never will. It really is a gift.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. Are you ready to trust your own standards and let go of the perfect choice today? Just start small. Pick the pasta, accept that it might just be okay, and reclaim your mental energy. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer today, and be sure to hang out with us next time as we continue to decode the fascinating hidden psychology behind your unique brain. See you then!